This is my dream about the Rapture event. In fact, this is my first significant dream. In spring of 1986, the Harpazo event. 1 Thessalonians 4:13-18. Brothers, we do not want you to be ignorant about those who fall asleep, or to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. We believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's own word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left till the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage each other with these words. It was a beautiful blue sky day, and I was surprised at how warm it was, considering that the last remnants of snow were still visible on the ground and the glaciated heaps left over from shoveled sidewalks and plowed out streets and driveways. In my stocking feet, I stepped out of my house and headed toward the sidewalk. It was one of those days where spring had either finally kicked in and the weather was really improving, or it was a temporary midwinter reprieve. You could see the grass uncovered at last, and the birds were singing. The sun felt warm on my skin as I took it all in, looking around at the world coming back to life. The white, fluffy mountain-like clouds spanned the northern horizon and were simply breathtaking to behold. Looking at the neighboring houses on both sides of my street, I noticed that the houses were all in a row that didn't end. I was somehow able to see that the row of houses continued all the way around the earth. I turned and saw that the sidewalk and the street did the same thing. They too spanned the globe. Standing there on the sidewalk in front of my house, I saw that out of every single one of those houses, people were stepping out and walking toward the sidewalk. Again, I could see that this was happening around the world, and millions of people were now standing shoulder to shoulder with me on the sidewalk. I was aware that all of these people were Christians. My youth pastor was right beside me to my left, and she was radiant with joy. Everyone was smiling. Next, as we were admiring the magnificent clouds, we saw a thin black line emerge on the horizon, far in the distance. Just like the row of houses, the sidewalk, and the street, this black line extended all the way around the world, and as we watched, the line grew progressively thicker and thicker. Then it became apparent what it was. At the leading edge of this phenomenon, we could gradually discern specific individual movement, which developed into a sea of people. These were the unsaved people of the world, and they were coming toward us. What happened next was truly staggering to see. In our midst, all around us, a gray fog began to appear. It came from nowhere and filled the air, and the fog was so thick and so visually impenetrable that when I held my hand up right in front of my face, right against my nose, I couldn't see it at all. Immediately, the fog began to coalesce above our heads into cloud-like forms, which quickly became a huge black wall that was above the row of houses. This wall also extended around the world. To get a better idea of what this wall looked like, imagine that each brick was perhaps a half-mile long and a quarter-mile tall. Where there should have been mortar between these bricks of gray fog, there was empty space. The first row of bricks was perhaps 200 feet above the ground, and beneath it was the row of houses. There it was. The biggest thing I had ever seen was right in front of me, and when I looked up, I could see that I was just beneath the front edge of the wall. It extended so far into the sky that it disappeared. All of the Christians were standing on the sidewalk, on one side of us from the unsaved people of the world. As the innumerable unsaved neared us, they abruptly stopped. Where the other side of the wall would have touched the ground, if it had touched the ground, the people were stopped from proceeding any further. The spaces between the fog bricks weren't just invisible, they were solid. Straight ahead of me, I could see the first people who had approached the other side of the wall, and they were surprised by what was effectively a force field. They looked like mimes, feeling along the surface of this phenomenon with their palms facing us. They were perplexed, and some looked terrified or angry. The endless mass kept pressing forward, and we could see the panic on their faces once they realized that they could not come over to our side, but instead they were trapped on their side of this world-dividing wall. I looked at my youth pastor, and like all the other Christians, she was looking up into the sky with the most wonderful, expectant smile on her face, and she said to me, "It's time." That moment was an inexplicable combination of profound and anguished sadness for all of the millions and millions of people who are trapped on the other side, along with the most dizzying and perfect joy I had ever known. It happened simultaneously with this next part, but as I was able to experience it in a sequential manner so I could explain it better. Imagine that you could compress and contain our immense sun within a large syringe, and you could then inject that sun inside my back, allowing it to expand to its former size, and its impossible heat searing me away in a blinding white flash. That's a good. The Transformation was instantaneous, leaving me with a feeling that everything that didn't belong was painlessly burned off, and I was left as a living, golden, corporeal light. As all of us experienced that remarkable change together, we soared into the sky with such speed that our arrival within the clouds felt instantaneous. The following can only be described as epic in magnitude. I was standing in the clouds, and as I looked closely into the distance all around me, I saw to my astonishment that the clouds were actually the redeemed of the earth, in such vast numbers that their glorious white robes blended together. I couldn't tell where the glorified believers stopped and the clouds started. Everything was a vast heavenly landscape where the golden sunlit edges of cloud were the only things that gave a perspective of depth and distance, other than the pointillistic speckling of heads, hands, and feet of celebrating saints. To my right and just above me, I noticed something coming downward through the clouds. All at once I perceived that the sandaled foot near my head and shoulders was still moving down to where I was standing. It belonged to Jesus. I saw the edge of his robe, and I knew that if I looked up, I would see his face. Staggered to the core of my being with excitement, prompted by a longing greater than any I'd ever known, I looked up into his face, obscured by the blinding light of his radiant glory. All at once, in one heart-bursting moment, I was completely and forever. Every longing of my heart was overwhelmingly met. As if I had been thirsty my whole life and had never until that moment enjoyed cool water, or if I had always labored in a desert of dry hot winds and never known a refreshing breeze until then, seeing Jesus satisfied me beyond all imagining. That's when I fell. As if he was protecting me from being ruined from having to return to normal life after seeing him for any longer, I fell back through the sky, and in a blink of an eye, I was aware that I was awake, but a foot above my bed, then dropped with a thud into my waterbed. Without hesitation, I bounded out of bed and caught myself almost trying to jump back up to where I had just come from. My heart was pounding, and the sheer exhilaration was tempered only by the immense disappointment that I was still here. For the next 2 days, I was unmoored, tossed up and down by alternating waves of joy and loss. That dream changed me and awakened in me a profound desire to live that experience again, and it also made me want to see the people around me come to faith in Jesus, so that they would not be left behind, but that they would go with me when Jesus comes to take us home.